Each of us has a unique set of strengths, talents, and genius. And when we can use these strengths every day, it's actually proven to make us happier and more fulfilled. And so in today's video, we're going over 4 ways that you can identify your strengths and how society has their approach to this a little bit backwards. So hey, what's up family? My name's Mitch. If you're new here, I'm a coach helping you create a life, job, and impact that aligns with who you uniquely are because you are awesome, my friend. So I'm a bit of a big picture guy. I'm a creative. And when I got into my first digital marketing job, I was thinking, oh, this is awesome. I'm going to be working on new campaigns and innovations and branding. It's going to be sick. And then when I got into the job, that maybe took up about 1% of what I actually did. And the rest of it was very analytical and attention to detail stuff. And it really just not was me and my strengths. And so every day felt like a bit of an uphill battle. You know, there was things that I enjoyed like Photoshop and the occasional sort of ideation, but outside of that, I felt like I was really out of my strengths. And the days seemed like they went on for ages. I would learn things slower. I would make mistakes, and it didn't feel good. I didn't enjoy the job because I wasn't in my strengths. And the most annoying part of that was the fact that I knew if I was given the opportunity to do something that I was using my strengths, that I could be awesome at it, that I would be awesome at it. But there was no opportunities in that role for me to express my strengths. So maybe you've been in a situation like that, or you're in one at the moment where you just don't feel aligned with the roles that you do at the moment. And you know, there's an interesting quote from Einstein where he says, if we judged a fish on its ability to climb a tree, it would live out its life thinking it was stupid. So each of us is a genius at something, and we all have a unique set of strengths and abilities. We've spoken about him before on my channel, but Martin Seligman, the father of positive psychology, basically said, if you want to find happiness, identify your strengths and go about using them as often as possible. And if you're trying to find meaning, use those strengths in service of something larger than yourselves. So clearly finding our strengths and being in our strengths every day is hugely important. So surely if this is so important, we all spend so much time identifying our strengths and society supports us in finding them. And that's just not the case. Whether it be our bosses or our parents or even ourselves, as a society, we tend to look at what aren't going as well and try to fix them rather than what is going really well and try to really excel and propel in that direction. There was a survey that found 77% of parents believe that the most time should be dedicated towards the things their children weren't doing well at, rather than focusing on the things that they were doing well at. And this isn't to say that we shouldn't focus on our weaknesses ever though, because sometimes our weaknesses actually get in the way of us being able to fully embrace our strengths. It's not often that you can do a job where 100% of your tasks are in your strengths. And so if your weaknesses are getting in the way of you being able to do those tasks, then they should be focused on and got to a level where they are, not in the way anymore. But overall, identifying and using your strengths every day and excelling at them is a far better way to find happiness and fulfillment. Hey, if you're enjoying this video so far, hit that like and subscribe. I would really appreciate it. So let's jump into the 4 best ways to find your strengths. So the first one is to self-reflect. You have a lot of life where you've compiled a lot of experiences. And the problem is that often when we do things, we don't take a second to reflect on what we resonated with, what we didn't, what worked really well, what didn't work really well, and we don't actually learn from our experiences. And trust me, through your life, you would have used your strengths hundreds and hundreds of times. And so it's all there. It's all the information is there in your story. And so if we can pick them out, we can find your strengths almost just from this part if you have enough self-awareness. So some good prompts for this are, what are the things that you really loved to do as a kid? Before all these other influences came into your life, what were the things that you naturally gravitated towards as a kid and you just loved to do? Another is, what do you pick up super easily? What do you just instantly click, you got it? Or what makes you feel really energized? What can just leave you after doing a certain activity, you've got so much energy, where some activities leave you feeling really drained. When I've had a really deep conversation with someone, I'm bouncing off the walls afterwards. I'm feeling great. Whereas when I'm sitting in front of a computer looking at spreadsheets all day, I go home feeling drained, my shoulders are down, I'm not energized after that. Where do you just lose sense of time? Where do you tap into that sense of flow and you just get lost in your work? And also a really good one is, what do you suck at? A great way to cut out a lot of options for what your strengths are is to look at, what are you really not good at, or what do you really dislike? And then that cuts out a whole bunch of options straight from the start. So that's actually quite a good one to start with. And what do people compliment you on as well? What do people take time to mention that you are really great at that, or come to you for advice for? But we haven't tried everything in life, I'm guessing. So that leads on to my second tip in finding your strength, is to try new things. A lot of us just end up doing the same tasks over and over again, because particularly when we think we're on a path to somewhere, we end up doing the same things or same types of things all over again. But doing something completely new is a great way to learn about your strengths. What part of that, in that stage of doing something completely new and learning something new, what part really resonates, what part doesn't, what parts do you just get and you love? And sometimes it can be scary doing something new, but when there is fear, when there is resistance, sometimes that's because that's something that we really want to do, or something that is really right for us, but we're afraid that we can't do it. And so we put up some resistance towards it because of that fear. I've always really been into music, and I always wanted to make songs. I was always singing around the house and at school, and while I'm working, I'm always singing. It's ridiculous. But one day I was just I've always wanted to make a song. And one day I thought, screw it. I was about to go on a holiday, but I was like, you know what? I've got this urge right now. I'm just going to do it right now, because if I go away, I'm not going to end up doing it. And so I just wrote a song, and I put it on a beat that I found on YouTube, and I put it up on SoundCloud, and I didn't tell anyone about it. And I was just like, yeah, that was awesome. And, that led me to, for the next 3 years, really getting into making music, and just it just being this crappy little thing that I did. It wasn't that great, but I didn't tell many people about it, but I really loved it. And it taught me so much about myself and what I resonate with, because it was so far outside of my general scope of things. And so if there's things that you're compelled towards doing, do them and try them. You don't have to commit to them for the rest of your life, but they can teach you some really valuable lessons about yourself. The third tip in finding your strengths is to ask people around you. Ask your friends, ask your family. But with this, I will give a sort of caveat, in that the people that you know that are gonna give you feedback on your strengths see you in their perspective of you, sort of one-dimensionally, and they don't understand you as well as you understand yourself. And so ask them for their feedback. Ask them how they see all of your strengths, how they would describe your weaknesses, what they view you as, and be willing to receive that feedback as well. But also take it with a grain of salt that they don't understand you as best you know yourself. So it's good to get that feedback and to take that on board and implement it into the other work that you're doing on your strengths, but it doesn't have to be a final verdict. And finally, my fourth tip in finding your strengths is to do a strengths test or a personality test as well. Doing tests can be a really valuable tool, because we answer a bunch of questions and then we get back this whole report about ourselves that we may not have, just through our own reflection, been able to come to. And in receiving that information, we get the chance to assess it for whether we resonate with it, or maybe it's completely wrong. I've had some people do personality tests, for instance, and they were just like, this is so not me, but I personally have resonated with a lot of mine. So it's kind of similar to asking your friends. Take the information, take it on board, see how you want to implement it into your strengths, but don't let it be an all-encompassing final answer and just define your identity from this point. So some really good tests. There's a couple free ones, there's a couple paid ones. My favorite is the VIA character strengths test. That is a free one and it's got a lot of positive psychology backing. So it's a great way to understand your strengths. Another good free one is High Five. And then there's also a paid one called Strength Finder 2.0 by Gallup. And that is a really good one as well. So outside of those strengths testing as well, I also mentioned the psychometric testing. So often when we do psychometric or personality testing, there's a mixture of strengths and weaknesses in that report mixed in with the rest of our personality traits. And so that can also be a really good one to identify your strengths. And personally, what I like to do is to do lots of different tests. I've done so many personality tests. I've done DISC, I've done, Myers-Briggs, I've done the Big Five personality tests, and I've done probably more. But taking all that information, seeing what I resonate with, and sort of seeing the crossovers. If things keep coming up, it's a really good indication that that is a real strength of yours. So some of the best personality tests that I really like for finding your strengths is, like I mentioned, Myers-Briggs, which a good free one is 16 personalities, or the Big Five personality test. Those are probably my two favorites. So once you've got all this information now, you've done the reflection, you've asked people, you've done tests, you probably have a lot of information compiled. And one thing that I found really helpful is to store that somewhere. I have a file on my computer that literally has almost every personality test and every answer of everything I've ever resonated with from every job that I've ever done. And it really helps me to understand who I am and where I'm going and how I can go forward and leverage my strengths in the best way, because often we can forget as well. Like if you just ask someone off the top of my head, what's your top 5 strengths? It'd probably be hard to answer that question. So having that all there when we are making big life decisions can be really helpful to reflect back on. So I hope you enjoyed the video, guys. If you did, hit that like and subscribe and let me know what was the biggest breakthrough for you in finding your strengths. If you're looking to continue your self-awareness journey, then I will link up after this a video I recently did on my 6 ways to develop your self-awareness practice, and I will see you in the next video.